Okay, so there doesn't seem to be many of you here this morning, and so you might have just looked on the assignment sheet and saw we were going to do that review over angles or triangles, whatever it says. We're only going to do half of it today. I'm going to kind of step you through some of it, give you a few reminders, do a little bit of review before the review, because there were some things, some of the work that was turned in that just wasn't, it just wasn't done right, just to be honest. And so for those of you that are going to watch this, you will at least have the luxury of hearing that, and then you shouldn't miss it on the review if you did miss it when you did it in the assignment. But I got everything graded yesterday that got turned in, and before we step into this review that we're going to start working on, we're going to go over some of the factoring that y'all did or did not do on review 8.1. So you will, of course, come Monday, when you pick up your packets, you'll have everything in it that I graded, and you can, of course, correct and turn it back in and get some credit back. And so I'm going to go over a couple of the questions that a majority of you did not get right, and so hopefully you'll watch this at some point and get those answers corrected and turn them in, because they were worth about 10 points each, I think, so that's pretty significant. So on review 8.1 on page 388, we started at number 7. I did that one on the board, okay, so you should have gotten that right. However, let's talk about number 8. Okay, this was a problem that you were supposed to factor, and by far the majority of you put prime. You just, I'm guessing, you just gave up too quickly. I think there might have been one of you that factored this properly. So, you know, the first question that you always ask yourself, Ethan's favorite question, is what can I pull out? What can I factor out of everything? Well, there's not any one thing that can come out of every single one of our terms. So let's go ahead and get this set up, ready to factor into 2 binomials. And this sign tells me something. This sign tells me that these signs are going to be the same, okay? Because this is positive, that tells me these are going to be the same sign. This sign over here tells me what they are going to be. So I can go ahead and do this. Now you know that you have to work with all of your factors of 4 and all of your factors of 9, okay, which there aren't many. With 4, it's 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. 9 is 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. And your outs and your ins have to combine to give you a 12, okay? Hopefully you also recognize, and this may be what got you skittish. This may be what kind of scared you off of this and you just didn't know what to do, so you just threw down prime. Okay, so that's just my guess. So this is your quadratic term that you're very accustomed to seeing. However, your end term, which you're accustomed to seeing just a constant, but in this case it's also a quadratic term, okay? So that shouldn't, I mean, you've done this before. The only thing that's different is that our last terms just simply have to have z's in them. So that when I FOIL and I do my first out and last, when I multiply my last 2 terms, I just get that z squared. So all I got to do is throw some z's into those last terms. Now, what you should have recognized right off the bat is that this is a perfect square and that this is a perfect square. So you should be very familiar with identifying perfect squares. So the first thing that you should always try is square rooting them. So let's just square root them. So the square root of 4w squared would be 2w, right? So I would put 2w here and here. Because if I multiplied these, I would get that. Okay? And then in an effort to get this 9z squared, I would look at my last two terms because they have to multiply to this, and I would just square root this guy. So I would put a 3z in here. And let's just see what happens. So when we check this, we FOIL it in order to check it. So when I multiply my first two terms, 2w times 2w, I get 4w squared. And then when I do my outside terms, I get a negative 6wz. And when I do my inside terms, I get a negative 6wz. And then my last terms, a negative times a negative is a positive, I get a positive 9z squared. These two middle terms combine. A negative 6 minus 6 is a negative 12. And then there's that guy. This is the same as this, so we know that this is factored correctly. So this is your answer, all right? It can also be written like this, because I just simply have two of them. So I'm just multiplying it by itself, okay? So I'm not sure why many of you bailed on this problem and just wrote prime, okay? On most of them, it looked like you at least attempted it. I could see where things were erased, but maybe you just gave up too soon. Maybe this being another quadratic term rather than a constant, maybe that threw you for a loop, but that's an easy fix. That's an easy fix. You just needed z's, okay? You've done that. You've not done it as much as having a constant in the third term, but you have done it. So unfortunately, not many of you were able to reason through it. Okay, and then on number 9, I all but answered this question. I said it without saying it directly, but we know that, okay, if we tried, I'll just kind of go over what I went over when y'all did this review. If we tried to factor this, this right here, this sign right here tells me they would be the same, but there's not another sign to tell me what they would be, so we could just kind of guess, which isn't smart, but we could just kind of guess and go, oh, well, I don't know, maybe they're plus signs, I don't know, okay? And then if I were to square root this, these would be a squares. And if I were to square root this, I would have b squares, okay? But then if I went back to try to check it, and I FOILed it, when I multiply my first terms, I'd get a to the 4th. When I went out, I would get positive a squared b squared. And then in, I'd have another positive a squared b squared. And then a positive b to the 4th. So this would give me plus 2a squared b squared plus b to the 4th. That is not this. So this does not work, okay? This doesn't work. Now, what you should have been able to recognize is right off the bat, this can't be factored because it's not the difference of two perfect squares, okay? This would have to be a minus sign, okay? Then it would factor, okay? But you cannot factor two perfect squares separated by a plus sign. It has to be a minus sign. every time it has to be, okay? So this one was prime. Most of you guys put prime, I don't know if you knew why or you just thought, well, I can't get it to work, or I don't even want to try, or whatever, but most of you guys did get prime on that one. But I want you to know why, okay? You cannot factor it because of that plus sign, okay? If you did your outs and your ins, you would end up with a middle term, and we do not have a middle term, okay? Now, if this had been a minus sign, you could totally factor that. You could factor it quite a bit, actually, okay? This you could have factored you could have square rooted your ends, and then your signs are different, so your outs and your ins cancel and you don't have a middle term, okay? And then again, this guy would factor, because again, you have two perfect squares separated by a minus sign, okay? He would not factor because these are two perfect squares separated by a plus sign, okay? But this wasn't the case, but I'm just doing a little review because I don't want you to lose these skills because you're not using them. Okay, and then number 10. And then we'll move on to today's review. Because quite a few of you put prime on this one too, and it's not prime. It will factor, okay? There's nothing that I can pull out of all of these, so let's just get this set up, and then let's just start playing with some numbers. You know, this is just like a jigsaw puzzle. We just have to get the right pieces going just the right way to get the answer. So this second sign over here tells me that my signs are going to be different, right? So I've got a minus and a plus. And I know that these first terms right here have to have x's in them because that's the only way I'm going to get an x squared, right? Okay, so then we have to just start playing with these factors. We've got factors of 3. Fortunately, it's either a 1 or a 3. But over here we have 8. So we've got to play with 1 and 8 and 2 and 4, okay? So obviously if you were here, I would ask for you to just pick some numbers that we would just work with. And so this is just like a process of elimination. You just have to start somewhere, okay? And so for those of you that put prime on this, I guess you just gave up too soon. I don't know, but it will factor. So let's figure it out, you know? Okay, so let's just so one of these is going to be an x and one of them is going to be a 3x. We don't know where it's going to be, so let's just we'll just stick him here. I don't know. That's why we do math with a pencil, so we can erase. And then we got 1 and 8 and 2 and 4 to pick, you know. So it doesn't matter where you start. I will tell you this, more times than not, you don't use the 1 and the whatever. It's most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time it's just too big of a discrepancy. They're just too far apart in order for them to work. But, you know, if you want to try it, we can try it. Okay, so we can try 8 and 1. Let's just see what happens. Okay, so we have to check this by foiling it. So when I do my first two terms, I get 3x squared. My outside terms give me a positive 3x, and my inside terms give me a negative 8x, and then my last terms give me a negative 8. So I get 3x squared, and then I can combine these two, positive 3 minus 8. Okay, that's a negative 5. Oh my word, we got it. Okay. I really didn't want to get it on the first try. I really wanted to go through a couple of steps, and I was even trying to avoid getting it right the first time, and we still landed there. So, okay, well, so, you know, if that hadn't worked, you'd switch the 8 and the 1. You could use the 2 and the 4 and switch those. The 3 and the 1 can also be moved. You just have to keep going until you find it, okay? I really didn't want that to happen. I really wanted to try a couple different ways. So this was a case where the one did work, you know, but most of the time, a lot of the times it doesn't, especially if it's a big number. It's a relatively small number, but if it's a big number like 12 or 24 or something like that, most of the time I wouldn't start there. Most of the time I start toward the middle. So anyway, hopefully you guys will take advantage of this and correct that review that's coming back to you on Monday and give it back to me the next Monday. Okay, so after that, okay, all I want to do with you now is to just kind of step through this review, okay? So it's a very long review, so we're going to cut it about in half. And so today, I want you to do review of triangles numbers 1 through 22 on pages 395 to 397. So let's just kind of walk through these sections so that I can see if you have any questions about the stuff that's on this review. Now, obviously, you have your book to go back to. You've got old videos you can go back and rewatch or whatever. But just in case any questions spring up, I also do want to go over the first section together, because even though I very explicitly went through this during the first lecture, a lot of you didn't do it the way that I told you to do it. So I'm going to tell you everything that I said again. Okay, so on number 1, this is what you have. Okay, and this is A, B, C. So here's your angle. Well, that looks kind of weird having him in there. Stick him out there. Okay, so here's your angle. Here are your directions. Your directions say identify the vertex of each angle. Okay, that's the first thing you're going to do. And the second thing you're going to do is write the name of the angles 2 ways and use the correct angle notation. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to identify the vertex. The vertex is not an angle. The vertex is the place where those 2 rays meet. Okay? Now, they create an angle, but the vertex is the point at which those 2 rays meet. So the vertex of this angle right here is B. Okay, I just want you to write B. It's not angle B, it's just B. Okay? And then you were told to name the angle 2 different ways. Okay? Now, there are 3 different ways that you have to choose from. And you just have to give me 2. Okay? So one way of naming this angle is angle ABC. That's one way of identifying this angle, okay? Another way that you can identify this angle is just simply going the other way. Angle CBA. Okay, you notice on both of those, B is in the middle because he's the vertex, okay? So it doesn't matter. Angle ABC and angle CBA are the exact same angle, okay? But B has to be in the middle because he's the vertex, all right? Now, another way that you can name this angle is just by vertex, okay? So we can also call this angle B, all right? Now, this is exactly what I showed you guys on the lesson, but I didn't get this, all right? So I just want to make sure, I mean, I did for some. I just want to make sure that that on the review that you get it right, okay? Hopefully, I mean, I tried to leave you guys as much notes as I can when I'm grading your stuff, and sometimes I know it makes sense in my head, it may not make sense to you. You know, I try really hard to be clear without writing, you know, paragraphs at a time, but this is how numbers 1 through 4 need to look. Okay, so turn to page 396. The next section of problems that you're going to do is you're going to classify angles as acute, obtuse, right, or straight. Okay, so you should know those. Acute is less than 90. Obtuse is more than 90, but less than 180. Right is 90, straight is 180, exactly. Okay, and then the next two, the instructions say to find the complement and the supplement. Okay, so that means they add to 90, add to 180. You should know all this. Now here's a reminder to you. I've said it, but let me remind you. With angles, you have to put the degree symbol for angles, okay? So that I don't think that it's like radians or something, okay? So you have to use the degree symbols when it's a degree. And 11 and 12, you're finding that missing angle, remembering that every triangle has 180 degrees. Again, don't forget to use your degree symbol. Some of you guys are just losing little points here and there because you're not doing that. 13 and 14, you're doing the same thing. You're looking for that missing angle. 15 and 16, you're labeling the sides and the angles or the vertices. The sides, you use lowercase letters. The angles, you use capital letters. 17 through 20, you're labeling your triangle adjacent and opposite hypotenuse according to the reference angle that's been given to you. So draw these triangles exactly the way they are in the book. Don't translate them, or rotate them, just exactly the way they are in the book. And then the last two that you're going to do, 21 and 22, you are determining whether or not the two given triangles are similar. So just a little refresher, and you can go back and look. There are two things that have to be true in order for triangles to be similar. The corresponding angles have to be the same. All of the corresponding angles have to be the same. And all of the sides have to be proportional. Okay? So if they're similar, I want you to show me all of your proportions, all three sides, not just one or two. I need to see that all three sides are proportional. So I need to see a fraction set up to equal another fraction, set up to equal another fraction, all of them reduced so that they're all the same. Okay? Don't show me three different fractions set up equal that don't look the same and then tell me that they're similar. Simplify. Okay? I want to see that we're down to this equals this, and they're all the same. Okay? If they're not similar, I need you to tell me why. Whether it's because the corresponding angles are not equal or whether the corresponding sides are not proportional. Okay? So I need you to tell me. All right, so you're just going to do 1 through 22 today. Tomorrow, we will finish up just walking through the review, and then I'm going to give you, I'm going to let you know tomorrow what's going to be on your quiz for Monday so that you'll know exactly what you need to know for your quiz on Monday. So that's all that I have for you guys. So get this done and then get outside and enjoy the beautiful, warm, yummy, sunny day that we're going to have today after you get all your work done. All right? So I'll see you here tomorrow morning and we'll finish this up. All right? Bye, guys.